Have you ever met someone who seems to push people away just when they need them most? Someone who becomes distant right when you're getting close? Who deflects affection with humor, changes the subject when things get real, or simply vanishes for days without explanation? Here's what most people don't understand. They're not pushing you away because they don't care. They're pushing you away because they care too much. And that terrifies them. Psychology reveals something profound about this behavior. People who distance themselves when they need love the most aren't cold, aren't heartless, and aren't incapable of connection. They're scared, deeply, fundamentally scared. They crave closeness with every fiber of their being, but simultaneously fear it with equal intensity. They want to be loved, they want to be held, they want to be seen. But there's a voice inside them, quiet but persistent, that whispers, "Don't get too close. Don't let them in. Don't trust this." This behavior has a name in psychology, avoidant attachment. And it's crucial to understand that this isn't a character flaw, a personality defect, or a choice someone makes consciously. It's a defense mechanism, a psychological shield that forms early in life, often during childhood when a person's brain is still learning what love means and whether it's safe. Think about how attachment forms. A child reaches out for comfort and connection. In healthy circumstances, they receive warmth, consistency, and reassurance. Their needs are met. They learn that expressing vulnerability leads to care, that reaching out brings people closer, that love is a safe harbor. But for some, that's not the story their childhood told. Perhaps they were the child who had to comfort themselves because no one else would. Maybe they cried and no one came. Maybe every time they opened their heart, they were met with rejection, dismissal, or emotional unavailability. Perhaps their parents were physically present but emotionally absent, going through the motions of care without the warmth behind it. Or maybe the love they received was inconsistent. One day their parent was affectionate and attentive. The next day they were cold, critical, or unpredictable. The child learned that love comes with conditions, that closeness can disappear without warning, that emotional safety is an illusion. Some learned even harsher lessons. They discovered that expressing needs led to punishment, that showing emotion meant being called too sensitive or dramatic, that vulnerability was weakness to be mocked rather than met with compassion. So their young brain, trying to make sense of this confusing world, drew a conclusion: love isn't safe. Closeness leads to pain. The only protection is distance. Now, as adults, these people carry those early lessons in their bones. Their nervous system remembers what their conscious mind might have forgotten. When someone gets close, when genuine affection is offered, when vulnerability is invited, their entire system goes on high alert. This is why you'll see such confusing behavior. They don't push people away because they want to be alone or because they enjoy solitude more than connection. They do it because their heart remembers, on a visceral level, what it feels like to be hurt. Their body remembers the ache of reaching out and finding nothing there. Their soul remembers the crushing weight of disappointment when love proved unreliable. They've learned, through painful experience, that it's safer to seem distant than to risk being shattered again. That it's easier to maintain control through emotional distance than to surrender to the terrifying vulnerability of genuine intimacy. This is why their reactions can seem so contradictory, so confusing to those who care about them. When you show them genuine care, they might suddenly pull back, creating space where there was connection. When you express affection, they might deflect with a joke, turning a tender moment into something light and dismissive. When things are going well, when the relationship feels warm and secure, they might disappear for days or even weeks, leaving you wondering what you did wrong. The answer? You didn't do anything wrong. They're simply overwhelmed by feelings they've spent a lifetime learning not to trust. Psychologists call this a defense mechanism, and it operates largely at a subconscious level. It's their psyche's way of saying, "I want love desperately, but I don't know if I can survive the inevitable pain that seems to follow it." Their walls, those emotional barriers they construct so carefully, aren't meant to keep love out forever. They're meant to keep the pain they've already experienced from flooding back in. Every brick in that wall represents a time they were hurt, a moment they felt abandoned, an instance when love proved dangerous. But here's the profound truth that most people never see, never understand. The moment they push you away is usually the exact moment they're hurting the most. When they seem most distant, most cold, most unreachable, that's often when they're fighting the hardest internal battle. Inside their mind, two parts are at war. One part desperately wants to trust you, wants to believe that maybe this time it will be different, that maybe you're safe, that perhaps love doesn't have to hurt. The other part is terrified, absolutely convinced that opening up will lead to the same pain they've experienced before, that letting you in means giving you the power to destroy them. And here's what makes this even more heartbreaking. People with avoidant attachment often love deeply, intensely, but quietly. Their love doesn't look like the love we see in movies or read about in romance novels. It's subtle, expressed in ways most people miss. They'll check up on you without explaining why, sending a random text to see how you're doing, but framing it casually so you don't know they've been worried. They'll remember the small details you mention in passing, your favorite coffee order, that book you wanted to read, the story about your childhood pet, and bring them up weeks later, showing they were listening even when they seemed distracted. They'll show care through actions rather than words because actions feel safer, less vulnerable than saying, "I love you," or "I need you." They might fix something in your apartment, bring you food when you're stressed, or help you with a project. All ways of saying, "I care," without having to expose their heart with language. For them, giving love is easier than receiving it. Loving you means they're in control. Being loved means surrendering control and trusting you with their tender, wounded heart. But this pattern of pushing people away, no matter how protective it feels, comes at an enormous cost. The constant cycle of wanting connection but sabotaging it when it gets too close leads to profound loneliness, crushing guilt, and a persistent ache they often can't articulate or explain. They tell themselves, over and over, "I'm better off alone. I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own." And on the surface, they might even believe it. They've become experts at self-sufficiency, at meeting their own needs, at convincing themselves that independence is strength. But deep down, in the quiet moments when the defenses drop, they wish for something different. They wish someone would notice the pattern, would see through the walls, would recognize the hurt beneath the distance. They wish someone would stay, not despite the pushing away, but with full understanding of what that pushing away really means. They long for someone who would say, through their consistency and patience, "I see what you're doing. I understand why you're scared, and I'm not going anywhere." This internal conflict creates a specific kind of suffering. They feel guilty for hurting people who care about them. They feel ashamed of their inability to accept love gracefully. They feel broken, like something fundamental in them doesn't work the way it should. They watch other people navigate relationships with apparent ease and wonder what's wrong with them, why they can't just let someone in. The loneliness becomes especially acute because it's self-imposed. They're not alone because no one wants them. They're alone because they can't allow themselves to fully be wanted. But here's the hope, the light in this darkness. Healing this pattern is absolutely possible. It takes time, yes. It requires patience, certainly. But it can be done, and countless people have walked this path before. Healing begins with a fundamental shift in understanding, recognizing that not everyone will hurt you the way the past did. Your history with love doesn't have to be your future with love. The people who wounded you aren't the only template for how relationships work. Love, real love, doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be conditional, unpredictable, or emotionally dangerous. Safety doesn't always come from distance and walls. Sometimes, paradoxically, the safest place we can be is in genuine connection with someone who sees us fully and stays anyway. Often, healing accelerates when someone encounters a specific type of person, someone calm enough to stay present even during the push and pull, someone who doesn't take the distancing personally, who understands it's not about them, but about old wounds trying to protect themselves. Someone who gives space when needed but consistently reminds the person, through actions and words, "I'm not leaving. You can push, and I'll step back to give you room, but I'm not abandoning you." Someone who teaches, through their steady presence, that love can be quiet rather than chaotic, slow rather than overwhelming, safe rather than threatening. Someone who proves, day after day, that vulnerability doesn't always lead to pain. Therapy can be transformative for this, particularly approaches that focus on attachment patterns. A skilled therapist can help someone understand where these patterns came from, recognize when they're being activated, and slowly develop new neural pathways that associate love with safety rather than danger. So if you're someone who pushes people away when you need them most, please hear this. Really take it in. You are not unlovable. You're not fundamentally broken or damaged beyond repair. You're not too much or too complicated or too difficult to love. You're protecting yourself the only way you learned how. You're using the tools you developed as a child to survive an environment that wasn't emotionally safe. That doesn't make you weak or flawed. It makes you human. It makes you a survivor. And here's the most important thing to understand. Healing doesn't begin when you finally manage to let everyone in, when you've conquered all your fears and can accept love without flinching. That's not when healing starts. Healing begins the moment you realize, deep in your core, that you deserve love, even on the days when you're too scared to ask for it, even on the days when you want to run, even on the days when accepting someone's care feels impossible. You deserve love not because you've earned it or because you're perfect, but simply because you're human. And every human deserves to be loved, to be seen, to be held with tenderness. The walls you built kept you safe when you needed them. Honor that. But know that you have the power, when you're ready, to open a door in those walls, to let someone trustworthy sit with you in that protected space. To discover that love, the real kind, doesn't require you to be defenseless. You can be both protected and connected. You can be both safe and loved. That's not a contradiction. That's healing.